From the heart of Maine, this is the DuView Podcast.
Welcome to this week's episode of the DuView Podcast. I am your host, Du, aka Ryan Dumont, and this week I am joined by the president of Free Me from lung cancer and also a cancer survivor herself, Deb Violette. Deb, thanks for coming on to the podcast this week. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Ryan, for inviting me.
Yeah, not a problem. I know, we had first connected through Facebook Messenger and we're messaging back and forth, and I know it really got me thinking when we first started talking about, setting up to record this episode that cancer, as I said to you, earlier, is just one of those diseases that affects everybody in some capacity, right? Either someone directly or indirectly has either lost somebody or has known somebody that's gone through treatment or has, brought somebody to an appointment or whatever that may be. And so unlike a lot of, other diseases, COVID-19, whatever, else is going on, is that cancer's a unique one in that way, and that it connects a lot of folks.
It does. And like you said, it does affect everyone, directly or indirectly, coworkers, neighbors, family members, and it takes a community to heal.
Most definitely, and as we see with a lot of our, I guess I'll say, issues or problems we face as a society, it really does take a village, as it's been coined, to fight just about anything, and that definitely includes the battle against cancer.
Exactly.
And specifically, your organization focuses on lung cancer. As you were a survivor of lung cancer yourself. So when were you first diagnosed with lung cancer, Deb?
So I was diagnosed at age 45 in 1998 with stage 3 non-small cell lung cancer.
Okay. And what is the process that goes into a diagnosis? I know things have obviously, as technology changes and whatever else, but, at the time for you, what was that experience like?
Okay, for me, I had recurring lung infections, and I started coughing up blood after several months. And my physician's assistant sent me to the hospital to get an x-ray just to make sure that everything was going to be okay in my lungs, because I'd been on antibiotics so many times on and off for over a year.
Right.
And before I left the hospital, he called, and he told me that there was a nodule that they'd found, and that he would talk to my primary care physician to start getting further tests.
Right.
And what that entailed was seeing a pulmonologist and having a bronchoscopy. And for a bronchoscopy, they take an instrument and go down through your airway to look at your lungs. And if they see something, they may pick pieces off for samples to send it to pathology.
For testing purposes, of course.
Correct.
Yeah. And that's a heck of a process. And has that process changed? I know you're still connected with folks going through the process day by day. And so does that still pretty much play out the same today, or has it changed?
Exactly. Nothing has changed in that department. When they find something on a CT scan or X-ray, they will do a bronchoscopy.
Yep, that's the standard practice there.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So where did you personally yourself seek treatment?
So I was diagnosed originally in Augusta, and the pulmonologist, because of my age and the late stage, he felt I would have a better chance if I went to Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. So I went down and talked to an oncologist and a thoracic surgeon. The following week, I went back and had another bronchoscopy, but this time they cut a little bit in my neck and went down the median sternum area to gather the lymph nodes to do staging. Mm-hmm. And they decided that I was a stage 3A, and they worked up the protocol. At the time, my insurance company would not pay to go to Boston for chemotherapy.
Was it considered like out of network or just
Well, at that time, the type of treatment that I had written up for me could be done right here in Augusta.
gotcha? Oh, okay.
So my oncologist worked with the oncologist here at Maine General, and for me to have my chemotherapy. Then I went back after therapy, had a few more exams, CT scans, to see how things were going, and then they scheduled surgery, which thankfully my insurance company allowed me to get surgery at Brigham and Women's Hospital
Okay.
in
Yep.
Boston.
Yep.
And then I came back and had 25 rounds of radiation.
Wow. So, I mean, just going a little bit further into the journey. So, 28 rounds of, you said chemo or radiation?
Yeah, radiation.
radiation. Okay.
Chemotherapy was 3 rounds,
Okay.
spaced 21 days apart.
And what about the radiation?
There was 28 sessions, Monday through Friday,
Jeez. So 5 days a week.
5 days a week.
Just like basically going to a job, right? I mean, like
Exactly.
that. Oh, that's crazy. And I mean, like I myself haven't, again, I indirectly affected by cancer. I mean, my grandfather, as I mentioned to you earlier, was, lost his battle to leukemia 10, 11 years ago now. But, it's amazing the process and the I don't want like the steps and kind of like the march. It really is, the whole process that goes into, the diagnostics and treatment. People, I don't think the average person really thinks about how time consuming it is. I guess that's what I'm trying to get across there, Deb.
Right. It is. And that's all you're focused on. You're focused on trying to get through the day with appointments, trying to heal yourself with the right foods, getting your mindset to
Right.
fight the battle, surrounding yourself with people that are upbeat, positive.
Good people good support, good
right,
support system.
right.
Yeah, most definitely.
Because during the diagnostic test, you're going in not just for a CT scan, but I had to go in for a brain scan, body scan, to make sure that cancer was contained in my chest and not
hadn't
in my
spread.
brain or
Right,
my
right.
liver or in my bones.
Right. Gosh. And I mean, I can't imagine, the mental gymnastics you also have to do. I mean, I've talked, in previous episodes, some folks about the importance of mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, as much as this is a physical, really rooted in the physical health, although it does take a toll on your mental health as well. And so that's important to make sure that you're mentally healthy as well. That's for anybody, but especially someone going through such a process as cancer
Exactly.
treatment.
Exactly.
And, some of the cancer treatments that we saw, or that you saw rather, has these treatments evolved? Are there more of them now, or is it still pretty much the same process?
The staging is pretty much the process, the screening out of, bone mets and brain mets, anything that's been metastasized, all of that is the same.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that has changed is there's been slight progress, and I say slight progress, in treatment. Mine was chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. Now people are staged, and they go a step further and test for genetic mutations.
Oh, wow.
So if you fall into one of the major genetic mutations, there's over 200 that they have targeted, but there's only like 13 or 15 major genetic mutations that they have treatment for.
Oh, wow.
So a patient may not have the chemotherapy, the long days in chemotherapy and having infusions all day.
Right.
They may just take a pill 3 or 4 times a day or once a day.
And that's quite a bit less time consuming than going in the 5 days a week model or whatever that other model may be, right?
Somewhat.
Somewhat. It's not an absolute.
Right. They have to be. They've got to be followed very closely, monitored, and screened.
Mm-hmm.
every 3 to 6 weeks or whatever, the oncologist has set the protocol
Right.
up. So there is still a lot of
Time commitment.
time commitment.
Yeah.
It's
Outside time commitment.
yeah, it's not go and get your prescription and go home and, just take, your targeted therapy medication.
Right. I mean, I wish it was that easy.
I
but-
wished it was.
And hopefully we'll get there someday. But what makes lung cancer different or unique from other types of cancers? I mean, there are plenty of other types out there, but specific, for your organization.
Yeah, so lung cancer is a little bit different from other cancers in basically the stigma. Everybody thinks when they hear, I have lung cancer.
You probably
You
smoked
smoked.
cigarettes or you
You
smoked
smoked.
something. Yeah.
Exactly. And yes, I hate to say it, but 80% of lung cancer diagnosis is caused by smoking. And I don't like to promote that because
Right.
of the stigma.
Yeah. Right.
But radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer. And nobody asks a lung cancer patient, oh my gosh, you must have had a whole bunch of radon in your home to get lung cancer. Nobody says that. They don't even talk about that. And then, of course, with the new research, there's over 200 genetic mutations
Right.
that can
Yep.
cause this disease. And so it's just not a smoker's disease. If you have lungs,
You can
You
get
can get
lung
lung
cancer.
cancer.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's interesting. And actually, funny you mentioned, not funny, but interesting that you mentioned radon. Is we were actually a few friends and myself were a couple months back. We're sitting around the campfire and we were talking about back in early recorded history. When as medical technologies come a long way, and also just the documentation of medical ailments and whatever else. I bet you a bunch of folks around here in these areas with a lot of granite deposits, I bet you a lot of them died from radon-related stuff, and they didn't even know it because we couldn't either test for it or couldn't detect it, whatever that may be. And so that doesn't surprise me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I did not know my house was killing me until I got sick.
Really?
And the first thing that the doctors at Dana-Farber asked is, had I ever had my home tested for radon? I had no idea what that was.
And this was in the late 80s?
That
90s, rather. Sorry,
that was
late
in
90s.
1998.
98, late 90s. And so, I mean, like, I remember when we were building this house, or the house I'm in, a lot of talk about radon testing. And I had never really heard, I mean, being, I don't know, all of maybe 12, 13, 14 years old at the time. You're like, what's this radon stuff? And then, we have a lot of granite and blah, 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 like that whole, and it's amazing that it has such an effect on people. And like you said, like, until the doctor said, hey, have you had your house tested for radon? What do you mean?
Exactly.
And you're obviously not alone by any means, Deb, in that scenario. And so obviously, education is a huge part of the to help combat this,
It is.
right?
It
Without
is.
saying. So how many different types of cancers are there? I know you said there are, I know there are mutations and this and that, but
Yep. Yeah, there's over 100 different types of cancer.
Yep.
And each one has its own uniqueness
Right.
and protocols for treatment and diagnostics.
Okay, interesting. And so with lung cancer or any I know they're different, but there are some overlapping similarities, obviously. But what are all the treatments? I know you said they're different, but are are there any overlap in treatments, or are they all kind of specialized, or is it like it depends like on if you have lung cancer you need to do maybe the prescription type thing with what does that look like?
Yeah, so all cancers are treated uniquely.
Mm-hmm.
For example, this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Right.
They may have hormone therapy. That's not something that's done with lung,
Right.
at least now.
Right.
I know that there's been research to study hormonal effects in women and lung cancer,
Interesting.
but we don't have any
The
definitive
proof of that
proof
right now
at this point
Right.
for treatment. There's also stem cell therapy, which has not been used in lung cancer. So the different therapies, depending on the type of cancer that one is diagnosed, will get the treatment. The chemotherapy that I had may not necessarily work on breast cancer or colon cancer or prostate cancer. And as research continues, things are becoming more fine-tuned. The targeted therapy is developed specifically for that particular genetic mutation.
Right. And so we're almost getting to, we're working towards a point where you can almost kind of have a regimented set, like, oh, we're dealing with insert cancer type here, like, but, we have the bullet points type of thing. Is that
Right.
kind of what they're working? Is that the layman's kind of understanding to a point?
Perhaps.
Perhaps. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that works for me. And so I know that you had mentioned that insurance, and obviously that's a big part of any time you talk about anything medically related. And so you had mentioned that your treatments may have, given location and whatever else may not be covered, but the majority of folks when they when they develop cancer, or when they go to get treatment, is a lot of that stuff covered by insurance? Or does it? I know that it public versus private, and I know that it's not all one size fits all type here with insurance companies, but just generally speaking.
Exactly. Insurance companies will pay for what has been approved by NCI, the Food and Drug Administration. However, there's clinical trials. And if they have been approved to be used, even though they're not out there for the world to have access to,
Right.
The insurance company will pay for those approved clinical trials. The cost, again, when you talk about cost, every insurance is different.
Right.
You've got co-pays, you've got all of these things that's thrown in. So,
Right. I know that that's not the easiest part to answer, but just speaking generally, is it? I guess what I'm trying to say is, are most folks paying for things out of pocket, or are most folks have things covered for them in part?
for the majority, some portion of their treatment.
Some, but
is-
not others.
Right,
Yep.
right. Because there's so many things that goes into getting healthy.
Right.
You may be put on or it's suggested that, different vitamins, supplements, that's not covered by insurance.
Right. But still costs.
Still out of pocket.
Right.
You still have out-of-pocket costs because they don't pay 100% of your surgery, 100% of your chemotherapy or
Right.
your radiation. There's always out-of-pocket costs for the patient.
Right. Yeah. I mean, my only thing I can connect to that, I had ACL surgery a few years ago myself. And I still had to pay part of it, but I didn't, get whacked with the whole, surgery costs. And I guess that's pretty similar with cancer treatment as well. It depends on your insurance in part, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's interesting. A little bit of my other work, political work there on the side, we've talked about, being able to buy insurance over, state lines to try to make the process easier for people because, given my just basic understanding of the whole cancer treatment process, I do feel that it could be easier for people. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Deb, but I do feel like things could be a little bit easier for people.
I think there could be.
Okay. And so, with talking about insurance, obviously, and appointments and everything like that, connecting it to the right now and our current state of things, how has the COVID-19 experience influenced and impacted, just attending appointments and stuff like that? Because I'm sure things were shut down just like anything else was at the beginning, which is scary, especially if you're in this situation where you're Monday to Friday trying to get in to get treatment or what have you.
Exactly. As you know, Ryan, hospitals were shut down.
Right.
Period. The only thing that they were open to is treating COVID patients. All elective surgery was shut down. People going in for chemotherapy, There wasn't
It wasn't happening, right?
What I went through 23 years ago, I could not imagine going in pre-COVID and told that I had lung cancer and then go back for the protocol and be told we're not taking patients now.
Right. I mean, talk about a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't work in I don't have any hand in, state or hospital or any type of administration of anything. I can just sit back and talk about it. But, it must have been, I could only imagine how scary that must be, and the fear. And again, as we were talking about brain doing mental gymnastics, oh my God, I can't see my doctor. I can't see this. I can't see that. Like sometimes a phone call can't solve all the problems, or a video chat can't solve all your problems, and you physically need to go in and have something done.
Exactly.
Oh, gosh.
I just cannot imagine all of the patients that have gone through that, whether it was lung cancer, breast cancer, or any kind of cancer,
Right.
to be said, we're not taking patients right now. We're not doing any treatment.
Right, we're not doing anything extra. And so I know obviously things have tapered off a little bit. And so was that more so just for like the first couple months of COVID, or did that, I mean, obviously they're back treating people again and everything like that. We're kind of back to some business as usual here, but has that kind of worked its way out as things have opened up more?
It has, but also after, things started to open up, people had fear of
Right.
going into hospitals.
Oh, yeah.
I had my CT scan done last November, and I didn't really want to go into the hospital.
I can't blame you. Yeah.
It was frightening.
Right.
And so I can certainly understand patients, we can go back, we can start treatment, or we can, get our diet, testing and screening and whatnot, and not wanting to go into the hospital.
Right, and I
to do
think
so.
I think a lot of folks are not even just with hospitals, but even folks even going into the grocery store, with COVID or whatever, people are still getting used to things, getting comfortable again, acclimating back to being around large groups of people.
Exactly.
And I mean that's twice as scary, especially if you have an ailment where it puts you at quadruple or 5 times as much as risk as the average person. Vaccines and whatever else aside, just straight up person with cancer and a pandemic, right?
Exactly.
I mean, like I said, fear is such a huge proportion. I can imagine how important it is to have such a support system, and that kind of goes into my next part of the podcast here, talking specifically about Free Me from lung cancer, your organization that you're president of. And so, when did you start Free Me from lung cancer, Deb?
I started it in 2009, and I started it because I had done some volunteer work for national organizations, and I raised a lot of money, and I saw all the money leave the state. And I said, boy, if I can do that for this organization, I should be able to start a nonprofit right here myself.
Imagine what I can do for my neighbors.
And
Yeah.
yes, exactly. And I started the foundation with the intent, the large amount of money, yes, it's going to leave the state of Maine. It's going to go for research. I want a cure. I don't want anybody suffering from this disease any longer. And some of the money was going to stay right here in Maine to help Maine people get access to early lung cancer screening, and single-family low-income homeowners get access to radon air abatement systems. So that piece stays right here. It's not leaving the state of Maine. There's money there to help Maine people.
And I mean, you could almost, your name of your organization kind of goes to that step, right? Help not only me, the person with the cancer, but also me being our fellow Mainers.
Exactly.
And I think that's really unique. And, that's what I'm about, highlighting Mainers, but you're actually physically helping Mainers, which I think is a super important part of the process here. Is so, was it just your own experience that started you to prompt this, or was it the experience with also those national, organizations and just a culmination of things? Is that what prompted you to start it?
Ryan, it was my personal experience. 23 years ago, when I was trying to find information about lung cancer and my survival possibilities, there was nothing there. There was very little information out for people to grasp hold of.
Right. And I mean, that resource is so important.
It is. It is. And fast forward 23 years ahead, There's tons of information out there. I've got information. Our foundation, NCI, has got tons of information, and I tell people, go over there, look at the clinical trials, look at what's going on, look at what you need for information. The National Cancer Institute has amazing wealth of information out there for patients.
Yeah, that's excellent. I mean, the knowledge and the ability to not only educate yourself but also educate others, about anything, let alone finding information on something that is going to impact your health and life. But just alone, if you're say you're helping a relative, right, or anything like that, if it's a mother helping a child with cancer or anything, really in that regard, information can give people peace of mind.
Exactly.
And I think that's super, super important. And so the education of anything, whether it comes to voting or, cancer treatment or whatever it may be, I think that the more information you can have and centralized and easy to access, that's the huge piece there. It may be out there, but is it easy to get to people? Is it easy enough for people to access, right? Because you can't assume that, for example, maybe all people are young and computer savvy, right?
Exactly.
Or whatever the hurdle that you need to jump may be. If you can have quick and easy access to that information, it streamlines the process to help people.
Exactly.
And it'll remove a little bit of that fear from the process.
And anybody coming to my website, I have a resource section. All they have to do is click on like NCI, for example, or whoever I've got listed. It takes it right to their
site, right directly to the information. That's excellent, Deb. That's most excellent. And so what type of work does your organization do? I know you talked about a little bit of education, but what's the whole under the whole umbrella of Free Me from lung cancer?
Yeah, so we do education. We provide support to patient care, patient support. We raise money for research. We help high-risk uninsured patients get access to early lung cancer screening, and single-family low-income homeowners get access to radon air abatement systems. That's pretty it in a nutshell.
And so do you see that folks that come from perhaps less means or, from a tougher economic background, do they have less, they usually have less of an opportunity for treatment and for other things? Or do you see, how much do means play into that? I know that you mentioned low income, radon testing for folks. And I mean, I know that we have an issue with affordable housing and also making sure that, if we're going to have housing for people, it's also safe. And, so I'm sure that falls into your purview a little bit.
Right. As far as getting access to health care, of course, those that don't have insurance may have a tougher time navigating the health arena.
Yeah, the whole healthcare network in general, right?
Right, because that's pretty daunting in itself.
And you really don't have any, I mean, not that the insurance companies overly go to bat for you in the first place, but at least there's someone standing in the box, so to speak, to go with that baseball analogy.
Correct.
So,
but, if somebody's having issues with their insurance company, they should contact the Bureau of Insurance here in Maine.
Yep.
They'll help them navigate through, and if there's a complaint, they will operate on the patient's behalf.
Right. Yep. They'll advocate for the patient.
Exactly.
That's excellent because, like I said, if you don't understand the system, again, going back to the knowledge of the process here, again, how are you going to advocate for yourself if you don't know the process?
Right.
So that's a good resource to have as well. And so in the state of Maine, focusing specifically just on our state, does most support for the diagnosed with cancer come from governmental bodies or from nonprofits and other groups like yourself? Where does a lot of the funding and support for things come from?
I would say the support comes from nonprofits and other groups and organizations. Maine government, I don't see them being very active in patient support.
Gotcha. It's usually you hear like the Elfon name or another group thrown around when it comes to that type of stuff. Yeah.
As far as governmental support, I rely heavily and totally on National Cancer Institute.
Okay. Yep. Most definitely. And then Are there any other groups that you work with directly or indirectly, just with Free Me from Lung Cancer?
I've worked quite closely with Maine General, Mercy Northern Lights in
Yep.
Portland, and Central Maine Health
Okay.
in Lewiston. I'm trying to reach out to other hospitals throughout the state to see if we can work together in some way to help with their early lung cancer screening program.
Right, right. And so when you're doing this work here for your nonprofit, what is, if you could change, like one thing in your opinion here, just changing one thing in the field of either the cancer diagnosis or treatments? I know that's a big question, Deb, but
It is.
if you could try, or maybe a couple things that you'd like to change.
What I'd like to see is removing the stigma from this disease. Secondly, I would like to see research sped up a little bit faster so that we have treatments that's going to cure this disease. I would like to see an early lung cancer screening that didn't require radiation, maybe a blood test like they do for colon cancers or breast cancers or
Right.
prostate cancers. We don't have that.
That's interesting. Is there, again, and this is my lack of knowledge in the subject area speaking, but is there a way that they can implement that? Is that something that just is going to take time and research?
There is research. There's research going on. They were doing some research on breathalyzers
Okay.
because they found that through research, lung cancer patients had a certain protein that was emitted from the tumor.
Interesting.
So there
That
is
wouldn't be visible in a person without lung cancer.
correct.
Right. Oh,
correct.
that's interesting.
I mean, that would be, the ultimate is what I would like for early screening is when you go for your annual physical, you do a blood panel.
And
that
you
they-
find it
Yeah,
right
that they
there.
had
Yep.
something, like the breath test,
right.
that they gave it to everybody going in.
So you'd know, and I think that's what I should have mentioned this earlier, but I think that's kind of what you've been alluding to is that the earlier we can get screenings done, the earlier we can catch things, the better chance people have, and just the easier it is to treat. Is that
Exactly. Since the NCI has stated that early lung cancer screening with low-dose CT scans, they have been able to get about 20% of the cancers early. 20%.
And I mean, 20% of something is better than 20% of nothing. But we'd obviously like to see that number go up. But that's still unique. And again, if the sooner we can get detection done, I think that's the name of the game there. And that's a laundry list of things: funding, education, and basically everything that you've talked about so far with your organization. And I just looking around, checking out your website and your social media pages and whatever. You guys also host events too.
Yes.
You do like walks and runs, that type of thing, or
Yeah, we've got a Save Your Breath 5K run walk coming up November 6th.
excellent. Where's that going to be?
That's going to be along the rail trail from the YMCA down to Hollowell around.
From Augusta to Gardner or Augusta to Hollowell?
Just to Hollowell,
Okay,
around Granite Park, where all those beautiful
Adirondack
pretty,
chairs.
yes,
Yes.
and
Excellent.
then back up to Augusta.
Okay, great.
And then we're having an award ceremony at Bartow Brewing.
Oh, fantastic. Yep, that's down in Gardner.
It
Yep,
is.
fantastic. Yeah.
And there's going to be pizza and discount on your favorite brew.
Excellent. And that was November what?
November 6th.
November 6th. So, yeah, make sure, folks, you check that out, support that. And so, what, like I said, future events. And so, last but not least, where can people find you guys and keep track of Free Me from Lung Cancer, or keep track of you personally if they want to, connect with you personally, Deb? Where can people get in touch with you?
Sure. They can call me. My telephone number is area code 207-215-9035, or they could go to the website at www.freemefromlungcancer.org, and they can reach out there and connect with an email to me, or they can directly just email me at deb@freemefromlungcancer.org.
Well, excellent. So that's how you'd get in touch with Deb, folks. And like I said, anybody that is struggling with cancer here in the state of Maine, or just struggling with cancer in general here, there are resources there. A great resource, Free Me from Lung Cancer, with President Deb Violette there, guys. So that's going to wrap up our episode for this week. Deb, thank you so much for coming on. This has been fantastic. Just to give some good, again, education and further insight to folks. Because again, I was even talking with folks when I was setting this up, and I said it's going to be a good educational experience for me too, because I know a lot more about this. So if people ask me, I can, provide actual good content of answer. So
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, cancer affects everybody directly or indirectly, and so it's good to get some time focused just on that, Deb. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Ryan, for having me.
Yeah, of course. And so, like I said, you can check out Deb and Free Me from Lung Cancer with social media and on her website there. I'll have everything linked in the description for this episode. And so just thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you back in another couple weeks here. And in the meantime, keep track of all the DuView goodness on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. DuView 207 on Instagram, the DuView Podcast everywhere else. So keep these episodes listened to, guys, and keep tuning in. We got some more good stuff for you coming up here. So thanks to Deb for coming on, and thanks for all of you for tuning in this week, guys. Have a good one, and enjoy the rest of the week.